Tonight I stand before you with a truth that does not shout, a truth that does not chase applause, a truth that does not beg to be believed. It simply stands, and it waits for you to be ready. Focus on yourself, and stay silent. Watch how life changes. We were taught to explain ourselves. We were trained to defend our dreams before they were even born. We learned how to speak when we should have learned how to listen. We learned how to react when we should have learned how to rise. Somewhere along the way, many of us confused noise with power. But power does not announce itself. Power walks quietly into the room and shifts everything. There is a sacred kind of silence that grows inside a person who has finally decided to take their own life seriously. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with a speech online, not with a public promise. Quietly. I am talking about the moment when you stop explaining why you are tired. The moment when you stop proving that you are worthy. The moment when you stop arguing with people who have already decided not to understand you. I am talking about the moment when you finally turn your face toward your own becoming. Focus on yourself, not in arrogance, not in selfishness, not in cruelty, but in responsibility, because your life is your assignment. Your healing is your work. Your growth is your duty. Your discipline is your protection. Your future is your calling, and nobody can do that labor for you. We spend so much energy watching what others are doing that we forget to notice what we are becoming. We measure our worth against other people's highlights, and then punish ourselves for not matching a picture that was never real in the first place. But I want to ask you something tonight. Who would you be if you took all the attention you give to other people and returned it to yourself? Who would you become if you stopped rehearsing other people's opinions and started practicing your own voice? Who would rise if you finally gave your life the same loyalty you give your excuses? Focus on yourself. It does not mean you stop loving people. It means you stop abandoning yourself. It does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. It does not mean you grow cold. It means you grow clear. Some of you are exhausted not because you are working too hard, but because you are emotionally invested in places where your presence is not honored. Some of you are drained not because life is too heavy, but because you keep trying to lift people who refuse to stand up for themselves. Some of you are tired of starting over, not because you lack strength, but because you keep restarting in the same environments that broke you the first time. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strategy. Silence is how you protect what is fragile while it is becoming strong. When a seed is planted, it does not hold a meeting underground. It does not announce its growth. It does not ask permission from the soil. It does not complain about the darkness. It understands something we keep forgetting. Before anything rises, it must be hidden. Before anything blooms, it must be protected. Before anything becomes visible, it must be nurtured in quiet. There are seasons in your life when you are not meant to be understood. You are meant to be built. There are seasons when you are not meant to be celebrated. You are meant to be shaped. There are seasons when you are not meant to be seen. You are meant to be strengthened. Stay silent, not because you have nothing to say, but because what you are building deserves peace. You do not owe everyone access to your pain. You do not owe everyone updates on your plans. You do not owe everyone explanations for your boundaries. You do not owe everyone your future before it is ready to arrive. You are allowed to work quietly. You are allowed to heal privately. You are allowed to change without announcing it. There is a dangerous habit many of us carry. We speak our dreams too early. We place our hopes into the hands of people who do not have the emotional capacity to hold them. We expose our vision before it has developed its own backbone. And then we wonder why we feel discouraged. Not every listener is safe. Not every friend is qualified to witness your becoming. Not every room deserves your truth. Silence is how you choose the right audience for your life. Because when you speak to the wrong people, even the right dream can start to feel foolish. Focus on yourself. Your mind is a garden. Whatever you water will grow. If you water resentment, it will grow. If you water comparison, it will grow. If you water bitterness, it will grow. If you water self-doubt, it will grow. But if you water discipline, clarity, forgiveness, courage, and faith in your own ability to learn, you will slowly become someone you once prayed to be. You do not need a miracle as much as you need consistency. You do not need applause as much as you need alignment. You do not need approval as much as you need integrity. Life begins to change when you stop negotiating with what you already know you must do. Some of you already know what needs to change. You know which habits are draining your future. You know which conversations keep you small. You know which relationships feed your insecurity instead of your growth. You know which excuses sound comforting, but are quietly stealing your time. Focus on yourself. It is not glamorous. It is repetitive. It is lonely at times. It is uncomfortable. It requires you to sit with your own fear without turning it into entertainment. It requires you to face your patterns without turning them into jokes. It requires you to take responsibility without turning it into blame. But something extraordinary happens when you stop running from yourself. You start meeting the strongest version of you. Not the loudest, not the most impressive, the most honest. And honesty is a kind of freedom that cannot be purchased. Stay silent. Because when you argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, you are wasting energy that belongs to your future. Because when you defend your worth to someone who benefits from your insecurity, you are negotiating your dignity. Because when you explain your boundaries to people who only listen in order to break them, you are teaching them how to cross you more efficiently. Silence is not surrender. Silence is self-respect. Let your consistency speak. Let your discipline speak. Let your healing speak. Let your results speak. Let your peace speak. There is a language life understands better than words. It is called movement. It is called action. It is called change. I know it hurts when people doubt you. I know it stings when you feel unseen. I know it cuts deeply when someone reduces your struggle to a simple opinion. But hear me clearly. You are not required to convince anyone of what you are becoming. Your responsibility is to become it. The loudest validation you will ever receive is the life you build when nobody is watching. Focus on yourself. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not late. You are learning. And learning has a rhythm that cannot be rushed. Stop shaming yourself for needing time. Stop punishing yourself for growing slowly. Stop comparing your process to someone else's destination. Different lives require different timelines. Different wounds require different healing. Different callings demand different preparation. There are things you survived that you have not yet honored. There are battles you fought silently that you never gave yourself credit for. There are nights you made it through when quitting would have been easier. You are still here, and that is not an accident. Stay silent, not to hide, but to listen, because when you quiet the world, you begin to hear your own wisdom. You begin to hear what your body has been trying to tell you. You begin to hear what your intuition has been whispering beneath the noise. You begin to hear what you actually want, not what you were trained to want. Your soul has its own language. It speaks through discomfort. It speaks through longing. It speaks through restlessness. It speaks through peace. But you cannot hear it when you are addicted to external noise. Silence reconnects you to your inner authority. And once you trust that voice, your life becomes harder to manipulate. Focus on yourself. Build routines that respect your energy. Build habits that support your future. Build boundaries that protect your peace. Build standards that reflect your self-worth. You cannot build a powerful life with casual discipline. You cannot create extraordinary change with ordinary excuses. You cannot keep choosing comfort and expect courage to appear on its own. Courage is trained. Confidence is practiced. Strength is developed. Clarity is cultivated. You do not wake up powerful. You become powerful by how you show up when no one is rewarding you yet. Stay silent, because not everyone deserves front row access to your transformation. There will be people who remember the version of you that was easier to control. There will be people who are uncomfortable with your growth because it forces them to confront their own stagnation. There will be people who preferred you when you were unsure, apologetic, and small. Do not let nostalgia for who you used to be sabotage who you are becoming. Growth changes relationships. Growth reveals motives. Growth rearranges priorities. Growth exposes comfort zones. That does not make you difficult. That makes you honest. Focus on yourself. Stop romanticizing chaos. Stop calling emotional exhaustion passion. Stop mistaking attachment for love. Stop confusing familiarity with safety. Your nervous system deserves peace. Your mind deserves clarity. Your heart deserves honesty. Your future deserves effort. You are allowed to outgrow places. You are allowed to outgrow conversations. You are allowed to outgrow versions of yourself that no longer serve your survival. You are allowed to choose better even if it means choosing alone. Stay silent. Not because you are afraid to speak, but because you are finally selective with your energy. Not every battle deserves your voice. Not every comment deserves your reaction. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every invitation deserves your presence. Energy is currency, and you cannot afford to keep spending it on things that do not grow your life. Watch what happens when you stop reacting and start responding. Watch what happens when you stop oversharing and start over-delivering. Watch what happens when you stop announcing your intentions and start executing them. Watch what happens when you stop seeking validation and start building evidence. Life begins to shift when you become disciplined enough to disappoint people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Focus on yourself. You are not here to perform survival. You are here to design a life that actually supports your joy. You are not here to stay loyal to pain. You are here to learn from it and move forward with wisdom. You are not here to repeat cycles that exhausted generations before you. You are here to become the interruption. You are here to become the proof that healing can run in families too. And it begins with you choosing yourself quietly, choosing rest without explaining it, choosing growth without announcing it, choosing distance without justifying it, choosing peace without apologizing for it. Stay silent, because some people only notice your value when your availability disappears. Because some people only respect your boundaries when your access is removed. Because some people only recognize your strength when your rescue is no longer guaranteed. You do not have to be available to be valuable. You do not have to be loud to be powerful. You do not have to be visible to be effective. The most dangerous thing you can do in a world addicted to noise is become deeply focused, deeply disciplined, deeply intentional, deeply grounded. Focus on yourself. Read more, learn more, heal more, move your body, care for your mind, protect your sleep, nourish your spirit, simplify your life, reduce the drama, reduce the clutter, reduce the emotional chaos you keep normalizing, increase your standards, increase your self-respect, increase your patience, increase your courage to walk away from what costs too much of your peace. You are not required to burn bridges, but you are required to stop rebuilding the same broken ones. Stay silent, because silence teaches you how strong you actually are without an audience. Silence teaches you how stable you are without reassurance. Silence teaches you how capable you are without applause. And when you finally meet yourself in that quiet place, you realize something life-changing. You were never weak. You were distracted. You were never incapable. You were divided. You were never lost. You were listening to too many voices that were not qualified to guide your life. Focus on yourself. Your story is still being written. Your future is still forming. Your strength is still unfolding. Your confidence is still growing. Your purpose is still calling. And it does not require your constant explanation. It requires your daily commitment. It requires your private discipline. It requires your silent courage. It requires your unwavering respect for your own becoming. So tonight, as you leave this room, I want you to carry this with you, not as a slogan, not as a trend, not as a temporary burst of motivation, but as a way of living. Lower the noise, raise your standards, protect your energy, build your life quietly, and watch how life changes. Focused solitude reshapes your entire destiny, not because isolation makes you special, not because loneliness makes you noble, but because silence creates the only environment where truth can finally stand up inside you without being interrupted. There is a kind of quiet that does not come from having no one around you. It comes from having no one pulling you in directions that are not aligned with your life. There is a kind of solitude that is not empty. It is full of intention. It is full of attention. It is full of courage. Most people are not afraid of being alone. They are afraid of hearing themselves clearly. Because when you remove the noise, when you step away from the performance, when you are no longer adjusting your voice to fit the room you are standing in, something rises up in you that cannot be ignored anymore. Your real hunger, your real fatigue, your real desire, your real disappointment, your real potential. Focused solitude is not disappearing from the world. It is disappearing from distraction. It is choosing depth over reaction. It is choosing direction over approval. It is choosing alignment over entertainment. And the reason it reshapes your destiny is simple. Your destiny is created by what you repeatedly give your attention to. Not what you talk about, not what you admire, not what you repost, not what you complain about. What you train your mind to return to when no one is watching. When you are alone, you stop borrowing other people's urgency. You stop borrowing other people's fears. You stop borrowing other people's timelines. You stop borrowing other people's expectations for your life. You finally meet the pace of your own becoming. So many of us are living lives that were built in conversation with other people's opinions, instead of in commitment to our own calling. We were taught how to be likable before we were taught how to be clear. We were taught how to be agreeable before we were taught how to be grounded. We were taught how to stay busy before we were taught how to stay present. Focused solitude brings you back to your original center, not the version of you that learned how to survive rooms that were too small, not the version of you that learned how to shrink your needs so you would not feel like a burden, not the version of you that learned how to overgive so you would feel worthy, the version of you that existed before you learned to negotiate your own value. When you sit alone long enough, without entertainment to numb you, without conversation to distract you, without scrolling to interrupt your thinking, your mind begins to reorganize itself. Your nervous system begins to exhale. Your body begins to tell the truth. Your intuition begins to speak in full sentences instead of whispers. And this is why focused solitude changes everything. Because clarity is not created in crowds. Clarity is created in stillness. You do not find your direction while arguing with other people's directions. You do not discover your voice while repeating what is already popular. You do not design a powerful life while constantly asking others what they think you should do with yours. In solitude, you stop rehearsing explanations. You stop defending your choices. You stop predicting other people's reactions. You stop editing your thoughts before you finish thinking them. You let your mind walk its own path without being corrected. And slowly, quietly, something sacred happens. Your confidence stops being borrowed. It becomes rooted, not rooted in praise, not rooted in validation, not rooted in being understood, rooted in self-trust. And self-trust is not built through conversation. It is built through consistency with yourself, through the promises you keep when nobody is checking, through the discipline you maintain when nobody is impressed, through the honesty you practice when nobody is watching. Focused solitude forces you to see how much of your life has been shaped by reaction instead of intention. Reaction to family expectations, reaction to cultural pressure, reaction to comparison, reaction to disappointment, reaction to rejection, reaction to fear. You realize how many decisions you made not because they were right for you, but because they were easier to explain. You realize how often you chose comfort over calling. You realize how often you stayed quiet when you should have moved, and how often you stayed when you should have left. Solitude does not flatter you. It introduces you to yourself. It does not comfort your illusions. It confronts your patterns. It does not entertain your excuses. It exposes your habits. It does not rush your healing. It deepens it. When you sit with yourself long enough, you begin to notice how many of your problems are not created by lack of opportunity, but by lack of focus. Your energy is scattered. Your attention is divided. Your goals are interrupted. Your mind is overstimulated. Your heart is overextended. Your boundaries are too flexible. Your standards are too negotiable. And destiny is not shaped by potential. It is shaped by focus. Focused solitude teaches your mind how to stay with one thought long enough to turn it into something real. How to stay with one discomfort long enough to transform it. How to stay with one goal long enough to build the skills required to carry it. How to stay with one vision long enough to let it mature instead of abandoning it when it stops feeling exciting. Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they are constantly distracted by who they could be instead of committing to who they are becoming. Solitude removes the constant comparison, and comparison is one of the most powerful thieves of destiny. Because when you compare, you start rushing processes that were meant to be slow. You start devaluing foundations that were meant to be strong. You start abandoning your own lane to run towards someone else's finish line. In focused solitude, you stop asking, "Why are they ahead of me?" and start asking, "What am I being prepared for?" You stop obsessing over outcomes. You start mastering your inputs, your reading, your learning, your training, your thinking, your emotional regulation, your habits, your sleep, your discipline, your boundaries. And slowly, without applause, without announcements, without public accountability posts, your internal structure begins to change. Your attention becomes steadier. Your reactions become slower. Your decisions become cleaner. Your standards become clearer. Your energy becomes protected. You become less impressed by noise and more committed to depth. And depth is what separates people who dream from people who build. Focused solitude teaches you how to sit inside discomfort without running, and this alone reshapes your destiny. Because most of what is required to change your life is uncomfortable at first. Learning is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. Healing is uncomfortable. Saying no is uncomfortable. Outgrowing people is uncomfortable. Walking away from familiar pain is uncomfortable. Choosing uncertainty over predictable suffering is uncomfortable. But in solitude, you develop emotional stamina. You develop the ability to stay present when your old patterns start demanding relief. You stop needing immediate reward to remain committed. You stop needing reassurance to continue. You stop needing agreement to stay aligned. You begin to trust the quiet pull inside your chest that keeps saying, "This matters," even when no one else sees it yet. And this is where destiny quietly turns, not in big public moments, not in viral success, not in dramatic breakthroughs, in the private decision to stay, to keep practicing, to keep studying, to keep preparing, to keep becoming. Focused solitude removes the constant emotional influence of people who love you but do not understand your assignment. People who care about you but are afraid for you. People who want safety for you when you were built for impact. People who see your past more clearly than your potential. In solitude, you stop confusing concern with direction. You stop confusing love with alignment. You stop confusing familiarity with destiny. You learn how to hear your own courage. And courage sounds very different when it is not mixed with other people's fears. It is quieter. But it is steadier. It is not dramatic. But it is persistent. It does not scream, but it does not disappear. Focused solitude also teaches you how much of your emotional life has been shaped by constant external stimulation. Music playing, videos playing, messages arriving, notifications buzzing, conversations overlapping, opinions flooding, advice coming from every direction. And in that constant noise, your nervous system never rests. Your mind never finishes a thought. Your intuition never completes a sentence. Your soul never fully lands in your body. Solitude allows you to come home to yourself. And when you come home to yourself, you stop outsourcing your emotional regulation. You stop expecting others to stabilize you. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop needing instant connection to avoid facing your own restlessness. You learn how to sit with your own presence. And once you are comfortable in your own company, your standards begin to rise naturally. You stop accepting relationships that drain you. You stop chasing validation that confuses you. You stop participating in dynamics that keep you emotionally busy but spiritually empty. You stop negotiating your peace. And peace is not passive. Peace is powerful. Because peace gives you the mental clarity to make decisions that shape your future instead of decisions that soothe your anxiety. Focused solitude also rewires how you relate to time. You stop rushing. You stop panicking. You stop treating every delay as a disaster. You stop interpreting every slow season as failure. You begin to see preparation as progress. You begin to see repetition as refinement. You begin to see patience as power. And when your relationship with time changes, your relationship with destiny changes. Because destiny is not something you arrive at. It is something you grow into. It requires capacity. It requires emotional maturity. It requires resilience. It requires discernment. It requires humility. It requires consistency. It requires the ability to stay focused when the excitement wears off. Solitude trains you for that. It trains your attention. It trains your self-regulation. It trains your ability to work without reward. It trains your ability to continue without recognition. It trains your ability to lead yourself. And if you cannot lead yourself in private, you will struggle to lead anything in public. Focused solitude also strips away performative ambition, the kind of ambition that wants recognition more than mastery, the kind of ambition that wants attention more than impact, the kind of ambition that wants visibility more than responsibility. When you are alone, there is no one to impress, so your motivation becomes honest. Do I actually care about this? Do I actually want this? Am I willing to sacrifice for this? Am I willing to be bad at this long enough to become good? Am I willing to disappoint people who expect me to stay the same? Am I willing to choose discomfort now so I do not have to live in regret later? Your answers in solitude shape your destiny more than your words in public ever will, because destiny responds to devotion, not to desire, not to dreaming, not to talking. Devotion, what you consistently return to, what you consistently protect, what you consistently practice, what you consistently choose. Focused solitude also helps you recognize how often you have been using connection to avoid growth, how often you have stayed in conversation instead of doing the work, how often you have sought advice instead of building experience, how often you have shared your struggles instead of changing your habits, how often you have talked yourself into comfort instead of courage. Solitude does not judge you. It invites you to become responsible, not in a harsh way, in a powerful way. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop waiting for clarity to arrive before you act. You start creating clarity through action. You start trusting movement more than mood. You start trusting practice more than inspiration. And when you do that, your self-image begins to change. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying. You begin to see yourself as someone who is building. You stop identifying with your struggle. You begin identifying with your discipline. You stop telling stories about what you want to do. You start telling your nervous system through repetition that you are someone who follows through. And that identity shift reshapes everything. Your choices, your relationships, your standards, your opportunities, your confidence, your resilience, your future. Focused solitude also teaches you how to listen to your fatigue without turning it into self-criticism. You begin to understand the difference between rest and avoidance, between recovery and procrastination, between burnout and boredom, between resistance and intuition. You learn how your body communicates readiness. You learn how your mind signals overload. You learn how your emotions reflect misalignment. And when you stop ignoring those signals, you stop building a future that your nervous system cannot sustain. Destiny is not only about what you can achieve. It is about what you can hold, what you can maintain, what you can carry without collapsing. Solitude teaches you sustainability. It teaches you pacing. It teaches you self-awareness. It teaches you restraint. It teaches you how to be with yourself when no one is entertaining you, when no one is motivating you, when no one is encouraging you, when no one is noticing you. And this is where your real strength is revealed. Not in how you perform when people are watching, but in how you show up when no one is clapping. Focused solitude also reveals how many of your fears are not about failure, but about separation. Fear of being different, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being judged, fear of being left, fear of being seen clearly, fear of choosing a path that cannot be easily explained. In solitude, you begin to make peace with the idea that your life does not need to make sense to everyone. It only needs to make sense to the part of you that must live inside it. And once you accept that, your courage becomes quieter and stronger. You stop over-explaining. You stop defending your pace. You stop justifying your boundaries. You stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. You stop carrying emotional responsibilities that are not yours. You start carrying your vision with steadiness, with patience, with humility, with resilience. Focused solitude reshapes your destiny because it teaches you how to stay loyal to your inner direction when the external world is loud, confusing, and constantly shifting. Trends change, opinions change, algorithms change, popularity changes. But your alignment does not have to. Your discipline does not have to. Your devotion does not have to. Your integrity does not have to. And when you are deeply rooted in yourself, life cannot move you as easily. It can challenge you. It can stretch you. It can redirect you. But it cannot collapse you because your foundation is not built on reaction. It is built on reflection. It is built on awareness. It is built on intention. It is built on daily, quiet choices that compound into character. And character is what carries destiny when motivation disappears. Focused solitude teaches you how to walk with your fear instead of letting it lead you, how to acknowledge doubt without obeying it, how to feel uncertainty without surrendering to it, how to recognize resistance without interpreting it as danger. You become emotionally literate. You become internally stable. You become mentally resilient. And resilience is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is repetitive. It is unglamorous. It is built in rooms where nobody sees you struggle. In mornings when nobody knows you woke up early. In evenings when nobody knows you chose discipline over distraction. In moments when nobody knows you chose silence instead of reaction. In decisions when nobody knows you chose alignment instead of approval. Focused solitude reshapes your entire destiny because it places you back in the center of your own life, not as a victim of circumstances, not as a performer for other people's expectations, not as a reaction to your past, but as a participant in your future. It gives you back your authorship, your agency, your direction, your responsibility. And slowly, quietly, you begin to notice that your life is no longer being pulled forward by urgency. It is being guided by clarity. It is being sustained by discipline. It is being shaped by intentional habits. It is being protected by boundaries. It is being strengthened by emotional maturity. It is being expanded by focused attention. And when your attention becomes focused, your energy becomes powerful. When your energy becomes powerful, your decisions become precise. When your decisions become precise, your path becomes clearer. When your path becomes clearer, your confidence becomes steadier. When your confidence becomes steadier, your actions become braver. When your actions become braver, your life begins to quietly transform in ways that no one predicted, in ways that do not need to be announced, in ways that do not need to be defended, in ways that do not need to be explained, in ways that grow from your private discipline, from your silent consistency, from your willingness to sit with yourself long enough to hear what your destiny has been trying to tell you underneath the noise, underneath the pressure, underneath the comparison, underneath the fear, underneath the performance, underneath the stories you were taught to tell about who you are allowed to be, and who you must become, and how much space you are permitted to take, and how boldly you are allowed to dream, and how patiently you are allowed to grow, and how deeply you are allowed to trust the quiet direction that keeps unfolding inside you every time you choose to return to yourself, every time you choose stillness over stimulation, every time you choose presence over performance, every time you choose depth over distraction, every time you choose to remain with your own becoming, even when the world invites you to scatter your attention somewhere easier, somewhere louder, somewhere safer, somewhere more familiar. Instead of staying with the uncomfortable, necessary, powerful work of focusing your mind, guarding your energy, honoring your intuition, strengthening your discipline, refining your character, and allowing focused solitude to continue shaping the person you are slowly, quietly, undeniably becoming through the way you think, the way you respond, the way you move, the way you rest, the way you listen, the way you choose, the way you protect your time, the way you hold your standards, the way you release what no longer aligns, the way you commit to what still calls you, the way you learn how to trust yourself without needing witnesses, without needing permission, without needing confirmation, without needing applause, without needing agreement, without needing certainty, without needing anyone to see you clearly yet, while you continue to build the internal strength, the emotional stability, the mental discipline, and the quiet confidence required to carry the life that is slowly forming ahead of you. waiting for the version of you who is strong enough, focused enough, grounded enough, and brave enough to walk into it without needing to announce that you are finally ready